And boom, I'm live. What up? Another week, another batch analysis, and to be quite honest, this week has been rather uneventful for me. I think I only took like two trades, but that being said, I did show up every single morning at 9 a.m. and I was even following some markets at certain times. I think there was just one day where I walked away completely because I thought nothing is gonna set up and nothing did. So overall, I did pay attention to the markets. I was in front of my computer and I had alerts set doing stuff around the house, but I was following markets ultimately, but nothing set up in the way that I would want to. Just a few trades, one trade that I didn't take, a couple of trades that I didn't take actually, and I'm taking notes of those too, especially those that are like really, really edge cases, like as I get more to refining and sharpening my edge to the final version of what I want it to be, of course, the things that I see as gray area are going to be way more nuanced and there's going to be a lot of detail to them. So I did say no to a couple of trades for some tiny small details, and I thought those were important for myself to like take note of and to go over in my analysis and perhaps like draw some lessons or conclusions out of it. So I do take note of some of the trades that I don't take. Not all of them though. Some I don't like. I set it up maybe, and then I'm like, I take another look, and I'm like, actually, nah, I don't even want to be following this market. And whether it sets up and continues or not, it doesn't matter at that point anymore because one of my rules is just not met, and there's no need to spectate the lower time frame at that point because all that would do for me is lure me in to potentially make mistakes. But yeah, that's just a quick intro and like recap of how I felt my week was. So as always, let's take a look at the previous week real quick. So I followed the rules very well and I was very patient. And in regards to like how many mistakes did I do, I think I made like one mistake or something. So here 1 minute was a bit overextended. Okay, so I'm arguing that this trend over here is already overextended. And I would agree with that, definitely. I think this setup and ended up working maybe, I'm not sure. But no, maybe not actually. Like in general, these little pullbacks, I don't like them too much. Like here, after such a like mature or even extended trend, I kind of feel like I need to see a deeper flush. And the way that I see it recently is that I just look at the highest high. Okay, I know there's a higher high here, but it's just a wick, right? Like this is the high where it kind of broke down. This is just a wick. So where did this really come from? What's the demand zone? Where's the like last sell before the buy? Where was there some kind of demand overpowering supply? And I would say that's pretty much over here. Like I can mark up this entire MB, and I would like for the trade come at least like break its momentum cycle and come back into this demand, and this demand can hold and continue, or this demand can break down, at which point I assume reaccumulation anyway. But when that happens, I wait for a stage one before I trade, or I don't know, it can dip into it and immediately go up, in which case I can continue trading over here. And in general, just I don't like these little pullbacks that just kind of dip below the 20 and go up, especially not in those extended trades. So yeah, that's something that I took note of. Makes sense. And what else? Yeah, the pullback was too shallow. I actually created a little bit of an understanding for myself regarding pullbacks, and I will talk about that a little bit today. So I think this video is gonna be more like a self-coaching session for me, where I'm just gonna talk to myself and talk about the things that I believe to be relevant, because I will listen to this video later. And yeah, I'm just going to like self-coach myself and write things, because throughout the week, as things happen and they ultimately spark some kind of ideas in me or thoughts, if they are good, I tend to document them and then I go over them again, because if I don't go over them, I will forget it most likely. So I really need to remind myself of these lessons, and then again I will listen to this video again throughout the week to remind myself of those lessons. I will write them down because it's so important. Like it really took me to start trading to realize like how difficult it is to actually implement something in a decision making process. and implement it properly and reliably. Like for me, whenever I implemented something new, it took me at least a couple of weeks of live execution before I really like created it into a habit, you know. And especially on the lower time frames when you don't really have much time to think, you gotta have this figured out. Like if there's something that makes you doubt, it can very much happen, and it happened to me that I will not have enough time to set up my order and execute it because that's literally all the time I have. I have 10 seconds for one resting candle to set up my order and be in the trade if it manifests or if it taps me in. But if I have the slightest doubt in my mind and I need to revisit the setup and I need to really think about it, that's already too much time, and I can get punished for it. And I can make a mistake because there's time pressure on me and all of that stuff. So I really, really need to get this dialed in. And I have noticed that that takes at least a couple of weeks. So as I was like creating these sections over here on what to focus on the next week, and putting it into my checklists and like writing it on paper to have it in front of me and all of that stuff, I noticed that I would continue making mistakes in that specific refinement for maybe another 2 or 3 weeks. But after that, if I really paid attention to it, I created a new habit out of it and it became kind of passive and I no longer need to pay attention to it. So there's definitely, at least for me, there is a time element to it. Of course, there is a chance that I'm just slow, but that's okay. If I am, that's just how I need to work with myself. I'm not here to compare myself to anyone. Maybe everyone else can do it instantly. I don't really care. This is how I do things, and this is what works for me. And if it takes me a little bit more time, it's okay. I don't mind at all. I have the time, and as long as I ensure that my final destination is getting profitable and consistent, then yeah, I don't see any reason to stress it, especially since I'm not in like any kind of pressure financially or time wise. So I have all the time in the world, and I'm just doing what I know works for me, taking a slower approach, but ultimately it has led me to a system that I have right now where I make very, very few mistakes. And when there is something new to learn or when there is a mistake to be made, I immediately troubleshoot it and I just keep reminding myself of it. I come up with new simplifications of my rule or additional little rules and all of that, that ultimately leads me to sharpening my edge. And eventually, through this repetition and time, and most importantly, experience, I know that I will reach a state where I'm going to be 100% confident in what I'm doing because I will have the exact expectation of what needs to happen for me to take a trade. So that's why I do all of this, and it's been working really great for me. So yeah, as I said, this might be a little bit more of a coaching video because I don't actually have that much data to go over, but I did document some of these thoughts, and I'm going to go over them in this video. So with that being said, yeah, results last week were plus 4.2, the week before 0.2, and the week before plus 6.6. So I made like 10R in these last 3 weeks, which is really nice, even with my very refined rules and very few mistakes. So whenever there is a week that doesn't have much action, my main goal is capital preservation, right? I know when I want to put on my risk, and I'm very, very specific about it in terms of strength and momentum. And if it's not there, I really want to minimize my downside. And if that means skipping some trades that might work, might not work, that's totally fine. I mean, I can always loosen my rules a little bit later on, but right now I want to be strict. I want to breed this quality in me to really only take the best possible trades. And if that leads to me skipping a couple positive EV types of trades, that's okay because I can still implement those later. And ultimately, all that would possibly like lead me to was making R quicker, right? But picking just the best ones will definitely or should ensure a positive EV, even though it will take longer. And I'm okay with that, as I said already. So I took very few trades because my main goal is to minimize my losses. And then with a trend following system that we have, once markets really start trending, sorry, that's when I will get my entries and that's when I will make money. That's when I can really risk responsibly, so to say. And I'm being very specific. I have a couple of thoughts regarding like Ger30, for example, and I will get to that. And basically, I have rules that really prevent me to trade a lot of markets that might work, might not work, but they're like, yeah, it makes sense for it to go bullish here, for example, but I don't have all the kind of confirmation that I want, or the market is structure wise not in the position where I find my edge. So I skip those, even though I see people in Trade Talk trade those markets quite often and even making R, so that's awesome, but I just skip those, and I believe it's better for me. So yeah, long intro, man, long intro. But let's get into this trade. This week, sorry. So, what to focus on this week? Don't forget to follow the market after you enter. Yep. Didn't have the chance to even think about this. Mind your own business. Yeah, definitely. I'm very inactive in Trade Talk lately. I only rarely read something, but most of the time, because of how strict I am with my rules, I see people taking trades in areas that I wouldn't, and I see them sometimes succeeding too. And I don't really need this additional pressure on myself because, of course, the human mind tends to compare and everything, and it makes you possibly question your own system and be like, hey, like. Clearly, it's possible to make money here. Maybe I should loosen up my rules a little bit to allow for this price action as well. But no, no. I I have tried that many times in the past, and I'm happy that I found something that works for me right now, and I'm gonna stick with it. And because of that, I will do everything I can to make it as easy for me as possible to follow my rules, right? And that's why I don't expose myself to ideas of others whatsoever. It's if I should make an analogy, for example, if you're trying to hold a diet, and you put a shitload of sweets in your home, well, you're making it very, very hard for yourself because every time you feel some kind of temptation, it's so readily available to you. Like it's very, very bad to do that. So you need to regulate your environment a lot as well if you want to lose weight, just like you need to, in my opinion, regulate your environment a lot in your trading because otherwise you might be exposed to some ideas that will lead you to make bad decisions. So that's why I do that, and I think that's a temporary thing. Uh, Once I have 100% confidence in myself and at that point, I will know that none of this can really affect me, and I might return. And like even seeing all of those trades will not phase me whatsoever. Just like once you have a healthy relationship with your food, being in an environment where there's a lot of trash food doesn't affect you because you know what you're doing and why you're doing it. So it doesn't lure you in anymore. But you first need to master yourself, and that's what this is all about, man. Like trading is you versus you, and you need to master yourself. And yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. That's why I'm coaching myself all the time because I really want to master my decisions based on the rules that I create for myself. So anyway, I want to track markets well, of course. I don't like it when there's a valid setup, especially since they are so rare for myself with all these rules. If there's a good setup, I should be taking it. It's like I'm just delaying making money if I don't do that. So I need to track my markets well. It's unfortunate when something sets up and I wasn't even watching it. That makes me still a little mad, and it still happens sometimes. So yeah, I pay attention to that a lot. Use alerts. I've gotten very very good at this. It's very easy. I set alerts on my C or on my V, and then I can just walk away from the market and do something around the house. And only once it rings do I actually come back and watch. So alerts are awesome. Trade strong stage 2, see up from the beginning, and do not hesitate. Yep. Okay, so let's get into the actual trades. This one I didn't take, and it's a BE on GU. All right, so let me find it here in Notion. That's this one. Okay. And I started to write comments here to pretty much every trade, just like one, two sentences about why I took it or what I saw, my reasoning, basically. So here I wrote, I really wanted to get involved on this market, but I wasn't too sure about this entry. I wanted to see a little bit more strength in the MB1 validation. I see. And that's why I skipped it. So let's take a look. So here, GU, clearly in an uptrend, right? Like using the 50 mostly to orient myself. on my for the rule of following a trending market, right? As long as it's rising and everything, that's nice. Now, is this overextended? I don't know. Let's take a look. So this is definitely like a stage one thing. Maybe the stage one is here and this is already MMB1. Actually, that's probably more accurate. Yeah. This is MMB1 for sure. This is MMB2 in my opinion, and this would be MMB3. So not necessarily overextended in my opinion. This move could very easily like do something like this. So makes sense that I want to get involved in this. Here we are on the 6 minutes. So here we pull back into the rising 1020, right? And what I really like to see on the lower time frame at that point is a break of a momentum cycle. Sorry, that's over here, that breaks and goes into stage one. That's my immediate expectation. And that's exactly what happens. And over here, like here, this to me is just range shenanigans. I don't trust this whatsoever. So when I have this high, right, like technically once you go above, it's bullish and should be able to trade. But I really, really like to see momentum through this, and I expect what I call range shenanigans in these areas. I watched the reaction of how this level is interacted with, and when there's big cells coming into it, that to me is proof enough that this is most likely going to be a liquidity grab and range shenanigans, and I do not get involved on that. And only once it breaks above here, that's when I'm interested, because at this point we have a potential redistribution, and if this is to be a redistribution, then I expect, and I have these big cells, right, which are confirming it already. I expect this to continue lower. That's just my immediate expectation. And it has done everything it needs to do for it to continue lower well. This is what I have noticed. And if that starts happening, but then demand overpowers supply again and it breaks above that level that was already that liquidity grab, at that point, to me, that's a confirmed reaccumulation. And I'm valid to follow because my bias is long anyway. I wouldn't go short here anyway, so it doesn't matter. Like I'm waiting for my bullish setups, right? So once this happens, I already start following like right above this high. But as this happens, big momentum coming through like all this way. And yeah, I really want to get involved on this if it's not overextended. So here we have some kind of stage one. It doesn't matter if I draw it from here or here. Like ultimately, this goes through. So it doesn't affect the MB count, so to say. So here I have my stage one, right? And this is definitely MMB1, and this is MMB2. I don't think this is overextended by any means. So watching for a trade over here is completely valid. This is exactly where I want to get involved. So here I am on the 10-second, and yeah, this is what I do, right? I mark up the new high. The new high came from this demand zone. So now, as this pulls back, I want to get involved with the double MB. And it can happen many different ways, right? It can be something like this, where it just briefly dips below the EMAs, like here, creates an MB, then it creates an MB over here, taps you in and continues. It can also happen in a way where it has a longer pullback into the demand zone, and then it sets up a double MB, or it can even liquidate this over here for absorption and then set up very quickly and go for an MB. Can liquidate here, go a little bit lower, then create a stage one over here, and you can try this MB. And this brings me to an important point. It's very important not only to know what your setup is, but also to know what your setup is not. And while that might sound totally obvious and almost not necessary, I believe it's really important because if you only know what your setup is, then you're going to be comparing everything to what your setup is, right? And some things are simply, if you had good rules, you wouldn't even need to compare. Comparing takes mental toll, it takes effort, which is unnecessary. Like, your rules should make it so that you can see immediately that yes or no, is this a trade I'm willing to take based on all of those rules? But if you don't have rules around what your market is not, then you're always going to be like comparing right to wrong, so to say. But why not compare wrong to wrong? It's so much easier, in my opinion. So it's necessary to also know what not to trade, right? And what did I actually want to say? Oh yeah, but I actually think that this trade over here was fairly decent. But here, like, I already saw something that I do not like to see, And that's like one specific rule about the MB1 validation, right? This MB1 validation isn't as strong as I would want it to be. And here, I'm comparing this to weakness, right? When I see this, I compare it to the other weak markets that I saw in the past that ended up not working, which ultimately made me decide that I do not want to trade such markets instead of comparing it to a strong market. Because if I compare it to a strong market, I want it to look like a strong market, right? And I can talk myself into this bullshit with all of this bias stuff. But I don't like I want to talk myself into comparing it with the wrong because I want to filter out as much as possible, right? So if I'm already looking for wrong, I might actually find something wrong. And here, what I didn't like was simply that the MB1 validation was not the strongest. Like it was really, really edge case for me here, very edge case. Like I wanted to see just a tiny bit more strength, and I would take it. But still, I think this looks pretty decent. Maybe I should have shuffled and went to 15 seconds just to see how this looks, because maybe it would look better. But overall, I just felt like this was a little bit weak. Like even the EMAs are not necessarily rising here. And if anything, I should have taken this trade over here because that's the lower high here. But recently, I've also been paying attention to like wanting to see a lower low in the MB, but that's just something I'm playing around with. But here, uh, yeah, I just didn't like this. I did set up the buy stop, but I didn't trigger it. But looking back at it, this is a really edge case, and I definitely wouldn't be mad at myself if I traded this because it followed rules really, really well. And here, what happens? Yeah, taps me in, goes to around 4R, and returns to break even. So wouldn't be able to profit on that anyway. But I think this trade was pretty good. Like I'm gonna call it good, not perfect, but yeah, I didn't take it, which in this specific case, I think that's a good thing. I'd rather be stricter with myself than looser, and I can get better at that over time. So yeah, let me label this up real quick. Boop. So this is good momentum, good trend, good momentum. No reason not to get involved. This is, well, the state one breakout, and it's also good momentum. Here, good momentum, most definitely. And the entry itself, I'm gonna call good. Good entry. Wasn't perfect. MB1 validation could be stronger. Yep. And that ended up being okay here. So I'm gonna call it good. I think that should be an L, right? Yeah. Okay. Gonna quickly label that up. What am I gonna say here? I want to say something like weak MB1 to show. Oh yeah, weak MB1 validation. That's what I was looking for. Management wise, yeah, I would be break even on this candle. Yeah, that's enough strength away from my entry. And yeah, that was perfect. Okay, so good. That's that. And I actually don't even know like how far this ran. So when was this? July 14th at 17 o'clock. Okay, and what was it on? GBP USD. Gotta find that. So July 14th at like 17. I'm gonna go to 18. 18 o'clock. I should be able to see that trade where it was. Must have been a short. Did I delete it already? That's unfortunate. Let me do this. I'm gonna invert everything. Okay, so where are we on this trade? So this is So it's the MMB2 on the 1 minute. So it's over here. Okay. So select bar. I think the entry was somewhere over here. No? No, no, no. It was this one. Okay, it was this one. So Jesus Christ. I don't know why I deleted that, but let's see. can also just do this. All I care about is knowing when it tapped me out, really. Whoop. So let's go back. It's over here. Okay. So I would say this probably went to around 7 or some stuff. Who knows? Yeah, this is getting a bit too long. Whatever, I don't need to measure all of the max RRs. Nah, close. All right, so yeah, here I have another lesson. MMB1 and MMB2 are the best areas in the trend to trade. Yeah, that's at least what I have noticed. Especially, so it's different based on what kind of RRTP you have, because the more you look for, the less interesting it becomes to trade later MMBs, right? Because you really need some kind of trend extension for it to hit your target. So I figured with 5R, maybe I can still trade MMB3. Maybe sometimes I will. I'm not exactly sure, but MMB1 and MMB2 are really the best areas to trade. Like this over here is perfection. This is something that I should print out because this is where I find edge so often. Like this is where the best trades ever are. And that's when you have this uptrend over here that breaks down, doesn't like immediately go up or anything, just goes into stage one, shows you clearly that there is some back and forth, some weak to strong, some accumulation happening, right? Basic Wyckoff understanding. And then as it breaks out on big volume, uh, especially if it happens under the floating supply, but even some like above the floating supply. Actually, let me go over here because I think I have a perfect understanding here. Where is it? I wrote something about the exact area where I'm finding edge. Well, yeah, it's basically this area over here. So below the floating supply, after the double MB, there is this area where there is a trend and a break through the floating supply, and that is where I find my best edge. So that's exactly what I'm trying to trade, especially on the high time frames. That's how I orient myself. But I'm gonna get back to that later. Let's first go here. So what was I actually looking at? Oh, I was looking at the lesson. So yeah, here, this is a perfect example where this is the floating supply, right, of the most recent MB that I still see as part of the stage one because of the range shenanigans over here and the liquidity grab. But once it breaks above here with good momentum, like this is amazing. This like all of this chop that was happening here, I understand, okay, there's going to be a Wyckoff schematic, right? It's going to be a boxy price action. It's it's going to be like that. And eventually, like once it breaks out on big volume, that's when I expect the markup. That's when like the back and forth is done. The resistance has been broken, so to say, and now it's clear skies ahead. This is where it wants to move. And this was just perfection. Like trading in this MB over here and the next one, that's exactly where I want to trade. Potentially even the third one. I'm not sure yet, but yeah, the first and the second one. This context is amazing. Couldn't possibly be better. And here I was watching, I didn't get an entry over here, but I did get an entry over here. That's the previous one that we talked about that I didn't take because it didn't meet that one small rule. So everything up until the entry was perfect. And it came back to BE anyway, so it doesn't matter. But had I gotten a trade over here, like just a tiny little pullback over here, somebody selling a little bit into the released demand, that gives us our opportunity to get involved on the move and to really parasite on this. So yeah, that's just a little bit of an understanding. Going forward, I want to only trade these two areas. I found that the best trades come from here. That is the two momentum MBs that print after a break of the accumulation MB. Yep. Gotta drink a little bit. Okay, let's move on. So that was a lesson, and here is a -1 on NAS 100, and looks decent apparently. So let's take a look. Yeah, I was biased long on NAS 100, definitely. And here, like probably once it failed over here, at that point maybe I would look for trades here for a bit. But then, as this breaks down, I would not look for trades anymore all the way until a new break of structure, which is what happened over here, and pulled back into the rising EMAs and now moving higher, still below floating supply. Very, very nice. So let's take a look how it happened over here. I remember this one. Okay. So honestly, I should probably not trade this because this looks very different from what I usually trade. I mean, the trends that I trade, I like to trade healthy trends. In my opinion, this is not what a healthy trend looks like. And you might argue, oh, yeah, big strength, big strength. Yes, but it's a weird one. Like the way I explain it to myself is that this is just some composite operator that pressed the buy button and had a like accumulation operation that was way too quick and got them in extremely inefficiently. They are just inexperienced composite puppies that don't know what the fuck they're doing. At least that's how I explain it to myself. And this is most importantly, this is irregular. It's not something that happens all the time. Like if it happened in this way, this in my opinion looks way, way healthier. That's a momentum cycle, right? But usually when you see something like this, especially if it followed a big dump that retraces big time, very often this is just some kind of like irregularity, and I don't expect the market to continue behaving in a consistent way, right? So pretty much at this point I should have waited for a new breakout over here and started following maybe somewhere over here on the lower time frames. I think that would have been a better approach, but I somehow like talked myself into this because I was like, oh, okay, so this, like, yeah, it dumped, but here it really looks like it wants to continue. It has a clear momentum cycle. Here it's pulling back in a healthy reaccumulation that doesn't go too deep. EMAs are pretty nice. So if I go to the 1 minute, I should see some kind of stage one playing out here, and maybe I can get involved on an MB over here, right? And that's exactly what happens. Big, strong stage two, right? Big trend, so I definitely want to get involved in the reaccumulation. The reaccumulation does exactly what it's supposed to do, and then eventually creates the accumulation MB, or the supply over here doesn't quite matter because here it just broke through very strongly, didn't liquidate the high, so floating supply is still above. Or actually, no, it did liquidate it. It did. I thought it didn't, but it did. Okay, well, that makes it a little bit sus. A little bit. Like, it would be so much better if it was below. But either way, like, I already said it before, ideally I would have traded above actually. But anyway, here, big momentum, right? Pulls back into the rising 1020, into the momentum cycle. And on the 10-second, if we get a trade over here, that would be perfect. And here, first thing I analyze is this stage two. Honestly, like, maybe this is part of some kind of stage one over here, and then it goes in a fairly this looks good. This stage two is okay. So yeah, if this breaks down now, I should be valid to look for an entry. The way, sorry, the way it dumped is very sus, very sus. Like I don't like this at all, and that maybe should have been a warning sign for me to not trade this because again, this is a bit irregular. I would say it's not like a healthy pullback that then does something like this. So yeah, big dump, and here creates MB1, and maybe there was an MB2 over here. I'm not quite sure why I didn't trade it. I probably didn't trade it exactly for this reason, where it just dumped down, and then like it didn't do anything, dumped down again, and this time it like big momentum came in, right? And here the understanding or the concept of reignition is very important to me, where if I have like a momentum cycle, right, a markup that starts reaccumulating, as it reaccumulates, now I'm looking for the reignition to demand to show up again in order for me to get in. And that's exactly what I see happening over here. So I talk myself into it, and the MBs, they look fairly similar, I would say. Like this looks like a proportional DMB. So yeah, I did end up trading this, but looking back at it, there was a lot potentially wrong, uh, where it doesn't necessarily look like my perfect setups, and that's mostly because, well, this whole thing is very irregular, as I said, and also, uh, the entry itself, like these big dumps, I don't like that. Like usually you want to see small sells in the reaccumulation and eventually big buys. So yeah, I did see the big buy, but I kind of ignored the big sells. So yeah, that could potentially be a mistake. Like the trade follows rules really well, follows the understanding of market movement and all of that, and the momentum cycles and whatnot. But it just, based on all the things that I have seen, this is not the most reliable setup. Okay. So anyway, let's get into the labeling. So here it's a stage 1 breakout. You know what? I actually just, wow. I'm just gonna copy these two because I'm lazy as fuck. So boom. Stage 1 breakout on good momentum for sure. Here, I mean, yes, it's good momentum, but also it's inconsistent. Consistent and weird. Yeah, that's a good quality, huh? Weird. And here, this actually looked really good. The 1 minute is probably what looked the best. So it was also stage 1 breakout on good momentum. And here, this is a questionable entry. And because of that, I will call this a mistake. Yeah. I shall call this a mistake. And to be fair, I'm calling this a mistake just because I'm really, really strict with myself. The thing with low time frame is that you tend to get quite a lot of setups, like, but only when there's actually a market that is trending in your direction. That's like, that's the one bad thing about low time frame, I would say, because you need to be very, very patient before you start actually trading on the lower time frame. Whereas if you trade the high time frames with like the 1 hour entries and stuff like that, the good stuff about that is that you have so many markets to trade, right? Like all the stocks, all the cryptos, all the everything. But then again, maybe because of relativity and because of lack of understanding as well, even the stock market, right, should probably only be traded long or short once there is like a clear direction in the leading indices, like in the leading indexes, like Nasdaq, US 30, and all those things. So you're limited there too. Same with cryptos. Like you're not going to trade cryptos unless Bitcoin is in a very, very clear context, be it long or short. So you also have to wait quite a bit. But once things set up, you can really start trading those things. And it's similar here on the low time frame. It's just that you have much, much less markets to actually follow on like 10-second entries simply because there are no good broker deals for that. You can't really trade, like, I think at least. I don't think you can trade stocks on like 10 seconds from what I've seen. So yeah, that's just a little bit of a limitation. So on one side, if I say no to a couple of trades on the 10-second, like there are going to be much more opportunities, but only during good contexts, right? And I guess that's similar with stocks, that when there's a good context with the US 100 being bullish, for example, you get a lot of opportunities because you have a lot of markets. But here you get a lot of opportunities because you have a lot of setups, so to say. So if a setup is not perfect, I'm just not going to take it. And yeah, that's the most important thing to me. Anyway, let me label this up. This was pretty much all good until the entry, which was ugly. Ugly entry. What am I even going to say? Choppy. Probably just choppy. Sounds good. Management-wise, nothing to do. That was an instant -1. Okay. Yeah, I think that's all actually. Oh, tax. Yeah, tag. It's a mistake because ugly entry, that was weak and choppy. Yes, sir. All right. And now on to some trades that I didn't take, or oh yeah, this one I actually did take. So this is GU. We already had GU over here, upper. So let's just see what happened. So on the 6 minute, we were just breaking out of the stage 1, right? So here on the 6 minute, ooh, this looks like a completely different area. Okay, so let's take a look at the 1 hour. So here, the 1 hour already broken through. Jesus Christ, where is this? This is like, okay, very, very different. Cool. So here's a stage 1, and Is this an MMB? Yeah, this is an MMB. So MMB1, MMB2, MMB3. And this is where it breaks down and probably has a stage 1 and a move higher. So I would definitely count this as a reset, 100%. So I am very much valid to continue trading this. Here, yep, we have some kind of Jesus. I think I had a little fly into my throat. Jeez. Okay. So here there was some kind of stage 1, here some kind of range shenanigans, but then eventually started going higher, and I think this is also where I had some trades, and then it goes higher, 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 and pulls back into the rising 1020, so we have our momentum cycle. Everything is looking good. Let's take a look at the 1 minute. So here, good stage 2, this like gets a bit weaker, but eventually there is a stage 1, right? Stage 1 could be, let's say, over here, and yeah, definitely a reaccumulation. Lows are being liquidated, right? Reaccumulation, and then eventually big momentum comes in and pulls back into the rising 1020. It's a little bit above, but this is still completely decent. Let's take a look how it looks on the. Okay, I took a look on the 5-second here. And it doesn't matter if I trade the 5-second, 10-second, 15-second, because my stop loss is consistent, or sorry, constant is the right word. It's constant based on the 1 minute ATR. So whether I take an entry in the 5, 10, or 15, it doesn't matter. At this point, really, I shuffle these time frames mostly to see the structure and the price action. And here we have a very clear stage 2, where there's big candles in my direction, small candles against. Like this looks like a TWAP, you know, like somebody just started an accumulation operation, and as it pulls back, my expectation, of course, is that it's going to continue. And here, these MBs are very nice and proportional. I would say MB1 validation pretty strong, MB2 still above the rising EMAs and everything, below floating supply on top of that. So yeah, this looks very good. This, in my opinion, is a perfect trade. And I take the entry. Let's see how I manage. So this was not enough. This is just one candle, and I do not want to break even just yet. But as it breaks the high of that candle, that's when I move to break even, to risk free. And yeah, it continues higher a little bit, but simply not enough juice, and comes back to break even. At this point, I'm already like, okay, this is MB1, so maybe I would be looking for another trade over here, but I don't remember if it sets up or not. But yeah, overall, I think this was perfect. I really like this trade. So good momentum here. Very good momentum here. And this is a stage 1 breakout on good momentum. Stage 1 breakout on good momentum. And I would say this was a perfect EMB. Perfect entry. So yeah, that gives this trade a perfect. Boom. Nice. Okay. Moving on, I got a break even on NAS 100, but I didn't take it because there was no high time frame trade. So let's see. There was no high time frame DMB entry, therefore I'm not valid to trade this on low time frame. I see. Okay, so let's take a look. This one. Right. So NAS 100. I think I already had a trade on NAS 100, didn't I? GBP, yeah, NAS 100 over here. So what happens? So there's a stage 1 breakout, new momentum cycle. So here, that's the stage 1 breakout, new momentum cycle, I guess. Okay, this is a stage 1. Then it breaks out. We follow here, I guess, and then it breaks down. Okay, so and as it breaks down, I'm expecting a stage 1 over here. But at the same time, I need to have a double MB on this time frame. So I need this to go higher, pull back, and continue higher, right? And as it taps this trade in, this is exactly where I find my edge. So this is a relatively new rule for myself. So that's why I even followed this market. Oh yeah, and that is also no, never mind. I wanted to say that's why I should not have taken the first trade, but the first trade was taken in the right area. So never mind. Uh, no, this is one of those examples of what I talked about earlier, that it takes me a couple of weeks to integrate this new rule, this new habit in my trading, right? So that's why I didn't pay enough attention to this, and why I even included this trade in this data collection, because, well, there is something that I can learn from this trade, and that is that I could have already not paid attention to anything and not potentially make a mistake if I simply followed the very first rule, which is that I should only trade where I find edge on the high time frame, which is after the DMB. Like, okay, I should actually make this smaller and make it exactly like where I tend to find it. So it's not just here, it's above the floating supply as well. So it tends to be like somewhere around here, right? This is where I find my edge most of the time. This can even go a little bit higher potentially. But yeah, if I had that rule well integrated already and I was experienced with it, I wouldn't even be watching this market, because in the morning I would just take a look at this and I'll be like, okay, yep, I need this to first show some strength, pull back and break higher again to rule out redistribution. And yeah, until then, I'm not even going to follow it. Therefore, I cannot potentially make mistakes. But here, I didn't have that integrated yet, and I did follow, and I was paying attention. So what was I paying attention to? As I said, there's going to be a stage one, that's the expectation, and a breakout out of that stage one, which is over here, and it happens on big momentum and everything. So trading over here makes a lot of sense. On the 1 minute, right, we probably have some kind of stage one over here, and then it breaks out. I would say this is another reset, and then like this happens. And again, maybe I should not have traded this, because this is one of those things where it's very inconsistent and it gets super choppy here. It takes the liquidity over here. Like, why wouldn't it continue if there was really this much strength, right? If anything, this is proof to me that there is a bit of loss of momentum, and my alert should come up, like my warning sign should come up. But anyway, I decide to ignore all of that, I guess. And then the 10-second, what does it do? Well, it has this stage two. This stage two is actually much nicer than what we saw previously in that inconsistent trade, which was where? Which was talked about something inconsistent, I remember. Whoa. Where was it, man? It's crazy. Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I feel a bit stupid here. Oh, it was this one. Yeah, it was this one, where this was actually like a much, much bigger dump, lost its momentum cycle and stuff. But yeah, you see the similarities here, right? But here on top of that, it also liquidated it. So in general, like these ranges that are initiated by a huge, huge move, I think I'm gonna start calling them irregular and inconsistent and not get involved in those. But anyway, so here's the stage two, and I talk myself into, okay, this is strong and I should continue trading it. And here it breaks down, loses its momentum cycle, right? And here I'm waiting for my DMB. Ideally, it would go above this with strong momentum. And yeah, here that's exactly what happens. So it breaks out, pulls back into the rising 1020, and this would be a relatively nice setup, but I end up not taking it. And I don't take this. Why, actually? Yeah, because of the high time frame. But honestly, like even the low time frame was not the best. And what ends up happening, what is this actually? Oh yeah, it's a BE from below, I believe, because it would tap me in, right? And it would be chopping around, and at this point, I would really lose interest, and I would try to get out at break even over here. So, yep, break even from below. Very much not surprised. Was too early, yeah, and this is what ends up happening. So, yeah, this really, really doesn't surprise me. This is this is what they call in crypto the Bart Simpson setup. I mean pattern, if you could see it, like where it pumps up, creates his funny hair, and pumps down again, and you have his head. That I found that kind of funny when I first heard that. But yeah, I'm glad that I didn't get involved on this one. This was not a good trade. So here, uh, too early. Yeah, too early. Here, this is a stage one breakout with good momentum. Okay, this is good momentum, but I'm gonna call it inconsistent or irregular. I don't know. One of those words. Here, the DMB itself, I think the DMB itself was good. Yeah, that was a good entry. What I did not like, is again the inconsistent. Mm, yeah, I'm just gonna call it that. Just inconsistent. So overall, yeah, should I call it perfect that I didn't take it or a mistake? Like taking the trade would be a mistake. Hmm I don't know, man. I think I can call it perfect in that case. So yeah, so 60 minutes was questionable context because no entry yet. That's a new one. Get red. Okay. 6 minutes was actually, I believe, very nice. Yeah, 6 minutes was decent. 1 minute. Well, 1 minute was already questionable because, yeah, I'm gonna call it inconsistent. That's a new one. Inconsistent. Red. Okay. And 1 minute, or was it 10 second? 10 second was actually a good entry, but also it was inconsistent. Okay. Management-wise, nothing to do. And overall, that is, I think it's a mistake then. Yep. Okay. So that's that. What's next? Looks like I have another lesson here. Low time frames allows us to outperform the high time frame trade. Yeah, this is something that I already talked about, but gonna read it out. This is a crucial understanding that allows me to filter out a lot of trades in markets that aren't quite ready yet. It's simple. I'm only allowed to enter on the low time frame when there is a high time frame trade tapped in. And yeah. So if this is my high time frame, right, there is no trade to be taken yet. Like I'm not even gonna step down on the low time frame. Yes, there is a beautiful stage two, and it broke down. Now I immediately assume reaccumulation, and I have certain rules or certain things that I want to see before I get involved. One of those is if there is a clear MB and a break above with good momentum. This already shows strength, and there is an argument to be made to trade this, especially if this is a shallow pullback. If this is a deep pullback, however, and there is a stage one, I do want to see another DMB there again before I even trade it. So, yeah, this is a bit better. At least there's a clear push higher and a bullish range. Now we can wait for react on the low time frame. Yep, makes sense. But even better is when it does this and it creates a DMB. There's a DMB tapped in, and I can now step down lower and trade because this is where I find my edge, right? Just like I drew over here. That's where it is. This is where I'm waiting for the DMB. And yeah, this went very, very deep. So I expect a stage one here, right? If this didn't go as deep, but it actually happened over here, let's say something like this happened, right? Boop, boop, boop. Here, if it broke out higher, I would be willing to look for trades over here because this still qualifies as a shallow pullback. But once it does this and it falls down this deep, like I need to see a DMB, right? Because even if this was my entry time frame, I would be waiting for this, and there's a reason why I'm waiting for that because that's where I expect my profits to be. So, of course, I'm gonna do that on my context time frame as well. So, overall, like these days, I only get involved on completely fractal rules on all time frames, pretty much. Like my entry is always this, right? This is my entry. So this needs to happen on the higher time frames. Like it can be anywhere over here doing all kinds of shenanigans. Well, not all kinds, but like as long as it's going up right above the momentum cycle, let's say. Can do all kinds of shenanigans and I can trade them. But I cannot trade below here. I just can't. Because most of the time I find that that is where chop happens. But when if instead of this, like this is a shallow pullback, right? But if something like this happens where it's a deep pullback, now there's a stage one, and I need to see a DMB, right? I need to see this, then a pullback, and then continuation. I need this because I want to rule out redistribution because my expectation, of course, is this. and I want to rule that out. And the way it happens very often is that it builds up some highs, liquidates those highs, and continues lower. And when it does that, it usually just grabs liquidity and fucks off. I'm sure we've seen that time and time again. So that's exactly what I want to rule out. But if it grabs all of that liquidity, starts going lower, and then breaks higher again, well, that's a DMB. That's an entry on the low time frame, also on the high time frame. So now I have a valid high time frame trade tapped in, and now I can go to the low time frame to uh, outperform the high time frame trade, because now I can get, I don't know, I can get up to tens of trades over here in different places before it reaches the target, right, of the high time frame trade. So yeah, that's a very, very crucial understanding for myself, and it's relatively new, so I'm really hammering it into my head. Anyway, yeah, so that's that. And there is one more trade that I didn't take, and this actually ended up being a winner. So this looks a bit weird overall, so I didn't like it. When in doubt, stay out. That's a golden rule that I try to stick to. And here, okay, so this is on NAS 100 again, and here there's the key difference, right? There is the stage one breakout, and there is a breakout higher above over here, and that is so important. So here I already have the confirmed DMB, and I can try to outperform the high time frame trade on the low time frame. So let's take a look how it looks on the 6 minute. Yeah, I remember. So this one was a bit weird because look how fucking choppy and inconsistent it got over here. Like, yeah, it broke into a new high, so I probably should have traded here, but I think I talked myself out of it exactly because of this, because I expected this to dump down, like to continue in the same fashion. So again, it was a bit inconsistent, but I wonder if once it breaks into a new range, whether I should drop the inconsistent prejudice, like, yeah, if this happens, I'm not looking to get involved over here, of course not. But once it breaks higher, why wouldn't I look to get involved over here? Yeah, this dumps again a little bit, but then it gets higher again. So maybe I should look for trades here. I'm not entirely sure. Let's take a look how it looked like on the 1 minute. This looks very nice actually. So here we have a big stage two that reaccumulates quite a bit deep, but still relatively okay. Like there is a very clear MB over here, and it breaks above higher. And once it gets over here, I can probably trade it. And here it starts its momentum cycle, right? This momentum cycle, this stage two looks very strong as well. So this is creating now what this is probably MMB1, MMB2. This is probably MMB3, I would say. So I'm very much valid to trade here. And how does it look like on the 10 second? So this stage two is quite strong. Then it starts reaccumulating. We can draw a diagonal over here. And then this is a pretty clear MB, I would say. Breaks out with quite a bit of strength, but then pulls back a bit too deep. And when it does that and it immediately taps me into my entry, it's still okay. And I probably could have taken this trade. But I think the reason I didn't take it was because of this inconsistency. But again, maybe I should drop the bias of, like, maybe I should just consider inconsistency in that given range. So if there is inconsistency on my chart, it should, like, prevent me from trading the inconsistent range. But when it breaks into a new range, I think I can already start trading it, because all of this looks very, very good. Here I got my DMB, right? I have my high time frame trade tapped in, and here I'm just looking to outperform it on the low time frame. There is a clear move, clear reaccumulation, right? Like the demand zone held over here as well. And here it just continues higher. And I feel like I should have looked for entries in these areas, because that is where I tend to find edge, right? This is the range, and like the DMB is tapped in over here. So this all is my edge. So I probably should have traded here. I'm actually also taking a look at, I'm wondering if there was an entry over here. Actually, well, in order to get tapped in, I would have needed to trade over here, right, in this MMB. So that wasn't valid. That was not valid yet. I needed the DMB from the bottom. So yeah, I was only valid to go to the 10-second after this, which would lead me to start getting involved here, 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 and whatever. So that was, yeah, that was good. I followed those rules well. And the entry itself, it was actually pretty good. Like, let's take a look how it tapped in. It tapped in over here. Okay. Yeah, honestly, I think this was a good trade, and I probably should have taken it. But yeah, I also understand why I didn't. I didn't take it because of this. But see, and this is, in my opinion, where there is the most value in doing this self-coaching thing and like really, really getting used to seeing your setup over and over and talking yourself through it. Because now I can come up with a rule that, so, for example, will say, okay, inconsistency is only tied to the given range that is inconsistent. But once it breaks into a new range, I can already consider that as a fresh set of rules for that time frame, and I can trade it. So I think I'm going to go with that. That's the rule I'm going to try and make here, and what I'm going to try to follow in the future, because I really don't see anything wrong with this trade. It seems really good. So anyway, this is, what is this? Just good momentum, really. Momentum. Okay. Here, yep, that's good momentum as well. I'm going to write inconsistent here. Inconsistent. Yeah. What a weird word to write. Uh, Here, just good momentum. I already had that written in. Whatever. And this entry, it was good. It wasn't perfect, but it was good. Good entry. Like perfect would be if it didn't dip this deep, but this is still something I'm happy to take. So overall, this was not a mistake. I should have taken this. And here, yeah, this is one of those cases where I'm actually going to make a rule based on this observation, and it's going to alter all of my future trades, right? And I also today included this new tag called inconsistent. So this way, whenever something is inconsistent, whether it's a win or a loss, it's always going to get this tag. And later I will be able, through my Notion, filter it out and see how it looks like, what's the performance of those setups, and whether I really want to continue trading these or not. But right now, I really want to continue trading these. These seem good. So this was actually a good trade. Wasn't perfect, but was good. And I should have taken it. Should have taken. Okay. Good context. Good momentum. Was it the 6 that was weird? Yep, it was. Inconsistent. Yep, adding it on everywhere right now. Nice. Consistent 1 minute. 1 minute was actually really nice. And 10-second was good entry. Not perfect, but yeah, good. Management wise, I would reduce risk, yeah, on this candle as it breaks this high, because one strong candle is not necessarily enough for me. And here there was a lot of wicks, and I don't want to sell here just because of these wicks. Like I would allow this to pull back way more and still want to be in the trade. So no, absolutely no point moving to break even just yet. But here, as it moves away with strength and breaks this high, at this point, I don't want to have any risk on. And I think I reduce risk twice here, don't I? Yeah, I do. So here, as it pulls back and breaks into the new high exactly with this candle, I move to exactly risk-free. And this moves very, very quickly to a +5. So would have been nice to capture this +5, but it's okay. I was in doubt and I stayed out and I documented it. I did everything right in this case. So I'm happy with that. What am I going to write here? Going going forward, whenever something is inconsistent, no, going forward, inconsistency will be tied to its range. So once price breaks into a new range, it should no longer talk me out of a trade. Boom. There we go. That's what I'm going to go with. And I'm also going to mark this up as a lesson. Lesson on inconsistency and ranges. Okay. Didn't take, should have taken. So ultimately I made a mistake, I believe. Yeah, I still didn't figure out how to do this. So it's not a mistake. It's going to be a mistake in the future if I do it again. I just implemented this new rule, so it's not a mistake right now. So this trade overall was good. Okay. And last thing that I have here is a little something about pullbacks. And I do have that over here. And yeah, it's a recap of what I already talked about. But yeah, in a momentum cycle, we can get both shallow and deep pullbacks, but I want to trade them differently, right? So when it comes to the shallow pullback, whoa, what happened? Okay, cool. When it comes to the shallow pullback, right, I can trade DMBs right away. Like I can get tapped in here. And I'm usually looking for a diagonal break. But also, if it's a shallow pullback, really, I can already like start trading over here. But if it's a deep pullback, I can either wait for the DMB off of the demand zone, or I wait for a stage 1 and a DMB. But either way, I'll need to see the DMB, right? So if this happens, let's say, if this happens on the 1 minute, like I can trade this 1 minute entry, but I cannot go to the 10-second and trade over here because first I need the 1 minute to be in an entry for me to go to the lower time frame and outperform it on the 10-second, right? So yeah, this is mostly important for the VNC for overall market context. The high time frame needs a DMB for me to start trading the low time frame. So basically, whenever any given time frame goes into a reaccumulation, I need a DMB on that time frame in order for me to go to the lower time frame and continue trading it, or I need a break into a new range, because as it breaks into a new range, so let's say over here, right? Let's say something like this happens. Okay, so we have a momentum cycle, and it breaks down, and now I think I say that I need this, right, to start following here on the 10-second. That's one thing that I could possibly need. But sometimes what happens is that you don't get that pullback, but you actually get price breaking into a new high right away. And when that happens, yes, I can go also to the lower time frame and start looking for outperformance, because as this breaks down on the lower time frame, I'm going to be looking to get involved over here, right? So that's a bit of a difference. I can go to the lower time frame in the new range on the 10-second here, but I wouldn't be able to do that over here. Here I can't. Here I have to wait for the new, and I can enter this, let's say, on the 1 minute. That's not a problem. It's a higher time frame trade, but I cannot enter it on the 10-second. But once this breaks higher, now I can go to the 10-second and pyramid in another trade, for example. So yeah, that's a crucial piece of understanding for my own system. So yeah, the high time frame needs a DMB for me to start trading on the low time frame. Only trade the low time frame when the high time frame has an active trade. That's exactly what I do with my 2Es. First, I enter the DMB on the 1 minute with a 6-minute V, and then I enter the DMBs on the 10 seconds with a 1-minute V. Yeah, and the higher the time frame has to the higher time frame has to have a tapped in trade to go lower and follow. Yeah, I just keep repeating the same thing over and over, but yeah, that's important. And I already went through this earlier in another lesson. So yeah, that's it. So even though I didn't have a lot of trades, so to say, I did have a lot of room to think. Like some of these trades that came in really gave me a lot of food for thought and refinement. And yeah, that's very nice, because I do like these rules. They make complete sense to me, and I want to follow them. That's the most important thing. I want to follow them. So let's go over this section now. What went well? Actually, let me go through this first. So the context. This was a great context because it already has the DMB in, right? It's tapped in, so I'm looking to outperform. Here, yep, this was too early, way too early. Here it broke down for reaccumulation, but now I actually need to have the DMB on this time frame. So this was too early and I didn't take it, so good, good. This was amazing, very strong trending market with a reset, arguably, so this can continue easily. This, yep, this is 1, 2, right? And here I can already trade, both for two reasons. One, there's the DMB tapped in. Two, there's the range high, so it's a new range. So this is totally tradable. Beautiful, strong, strong trend. So nice. Here, clear stage one and break. I could have traded anywhere over here, honestly. It's also a DMB, by the way. So yeah, could have traded anywhere over here, and I did, but I didn't get an entry, unfortunately. I remember I was looking, like this would be a perfect entry, absolutely perfect, if I got something over here, but I didn't, and I looked for an entry here, and I remember not taking this because it looked a little bit weird, but I should have taken it, I believe, right? Did I say that I actually should have taken it or not? Let me see. Did I write anything? No. Questionable entry, weekend B1 validation. Ah, yeah, I see. Honestly, I think I should have taken this. Again, I'm not mad at myself for not taking this trade because it's a little bit questionable. But if I had this opportunity right now to take it, I would take it. So ultimately, I think this trade was okay and I could have taken it. But it's okay that I didn't. Like, it's not necessarily a mistake. I can always use discretion and say no to a trade. It's okay. But yeah, I would have taken this. Right. What did I get stuck on? Oh yeah, on the V's. Okay, so this V, honestly, in the future, I probably want to skip this stuff because of the inconsistency of this. As it breaks into a new range high, yeah, that then the inconsistency over here no longer affects the new range, so I can trade it there. But these ranges I really want to avoid. So that's actually quite a valuable lesson. I need to write this down. So here, this looked amazing. I really like this a lot. Like some kind of stage one breakout, big momentum, pull back into rising 1020. Very good. This looked decent as well. Actually, like looking at this and the way it happened, most likely I already know that I'm going to need this first in order to follow because no way the 1 hour is shallow and ready to be traded. This is a deep pullback. So yeah, this was too early actually. Uh, this, yeah, this was inconsistent, but here it stopped being consistent, so I should have taken a trade. 1 minute, this was really nice. This was really clean, stage two. 1 minute here, inconsistent, should not have traded. 1 minute here, beautiful. Very, very good. This is exactly what I like to see. Here, this is good as well. Yep, yep, this is good as well. Could have traded this, but unfortunately here, the entry wasn't very nice. So I should have skipped this entry. This entry was good. Yep, this entry was good as well. I like that. Well, was it? Ah, yeah, I see. Well, the entry itself was nice, but the range wasn't. The range was inconsistent. But this is interesting. Like the high is over here, so there is a new range over here. I wonder if I should have like if I should have uh, traded this or not, but probably not. Like even then, the cells are pretty big. I don't know. This was a bit of a questionable trade, but either way, it was too early. See, like this is beautiful. See how I'm like debating all kinds of different rules over here on these time frames, and I'm like, should I not have blah blah blah. All of this would ultimately not matter because the high time frame should not even allow me to have such trades. And I think it goes hand in hand that when the trade is not ready yet, like for me, I assume that this is going to be some stage one chop. I always assume chop in the bottoms of the pullbacks here, and it's almost like the market is in a different mode. It's in a mode to be liquidating, and because of that it starts printing these setups that are not necessarily beautiful and don't follow good momentum rules. So it makes total sense to me that there are inconsistent setups deep down in this range, because once it comes out and it gets into these moments over here, then the setups tend to look cleaner. At least that's what I have noticed. So yeah, all of this, like while the entry might have or might not have been perfect, blah blah blah, doesn't even fucking matter, because I should not have traded here in the first place. Here, I didn't actually mark up the DMB, so that would be MB1. Yep. And MB2 is this. They look very proportional, very similar. I think I should have taken this trade. Looks very nice. Strong validation. Yeah. Yeah. This is good. This is very good. Good momentum cycle. I should have taken this. And had I taken this, I would be up 3.6 or something. 3.4. I don't know. But yeah, so what went well? I followed rules really, really well. I said no to a lot of trades. This could potentially be a bad thing, right? But the way it happened, this was a good thing. I was very patient indeed. And overall, like, yeah, I liked this week's performance. What went bad? Hmm. So, what went bad? Hmm. I don't think anything went bad, to be honest. Like, actually, like I did make a mistake here, didn't I? Yeah, this -1. Okay, I see. What went bad was the inconsistency. Traded a few inconsistent markets. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take screenshots of what I consider to be inconsistent now. So there is this. Okay. There was more inconsistencies, I believe. Yes, there is this. Is there anything else? I can take this on the lower time frame as well. Okay. So yeah, traded a few inconsistent markets. And the new rule is in don't trade inconsistent markets. Maybe I can actually do it like this. And also, inconsistency is tied to its range. Once it breaks into a new range, it's no longer inconsistent. All right, so that's that. Very important to write that down. So let's take a look at the weekly analysis. So overall, my results are -1.4. Wait, -1.4R. And result after filtering mistakes. So had I traded perfectly, first of all, is this week 29? It is. Um, does not contain. Okay. So if I traded perfectly, I would have taken the win on NAS 100, and I would have taken this BE. Right. So my results would be plus 4.6. Nice. That would be really, really nice. But yeah, that didn't happen. But it's okay. It's okay because the week was very fruitful. Um, it has given me a lot of food for thought and for refinement, as I already said, and I'm very happy about that. These refinements make total sense to me, and I'm really, really looking forward to start applying them. These days, I don't see my rules as limitations. I see them as solutions to profitability. Really, like following these rules will be good for me. I know that. So that's why I'm excited about new rules. So what do I focus on next week? Okay. All of the following, yes. Use alerts. I don't even know. I don't need this anymore. So here, don't trade inconsistent markets. That's going to be the new refinement. That's going to be what I need to focus on. That's why it's on number 1 over here. And yep. Nice. Week 30. Okay. So that's all. That is all. I believe I haven't done anything else here. Nope, that is indeed all. So overall, I'm very happy with how I performed this week. Most importantly, because I protected my downside. I didn't trade when there was no trade to be taken. And a beautiful example was, for example, JER30. So everything here is inverted. So 1 second. So JER30, right? I started following JER30 when we go to the high time frame. I mean, I was following all of this, and then it broke down. And here, I already know exactly what I want to see before I trade, right? So if here it does this, I'm going to start trading. If here it does this, I'm going to start trading. If it goes down here, however, which it went, I already start marking up the supply zones because I know I need to see a break above that either way. So as it broke down over here, I already drew this in. As it broke down over here, I drew this in. As it broke down over here, I drew this in. And this is the one where, okay, so here it continued lower, but you can see big reaction over here, which makes me think, hey, I expect an accumulation schematic over here. So I expect STBs and springs over here. So if it breaks down but immediately pumps back up, that's proof to me that it's most likely accumulation. But it is still too early for me to trade because I know that my supply is over here. So if this continues chopping, which I expect it to do, and continue liquidating however much it needs before it continues, I don't give a shit. I don't trade here. And then, only then, after it has done its back and forth nonsense, when it breaks out, that's when I start following. And not even over here, I remember. I didn't follow here because I expect potential redistribution. I want to rule it out. So I started following over here. And that was perfect. Although it didn't provide me with any trades, I started following in the right area. And because this didn't set up in like a healthy way, it's completely expected, and it doesn't surprise me at all to see this dump because this would be very, very impulsive and strong if it wanted to continue, because that's simply what it does, right? It accumulates, it goes back and forth, it grabs all of its liquidity, and then it should continue its markup. If it doesn't do that, well, maybe it's going to start chopping here. If it does that, I will wait for a new range breakout anyway. And as that happens, hey, guess what? Over here, I expect this to once again be very, very strong. And if there's momentum, I'm going to trade it. But if there isn't, just like there isn't right now, I'm not going to trade it. Like maybe if this starts going to sideways a little bit and then it does this, yeah, maybe I can trade it here. But yeah, that was just a very quick example for myself regarding JER30. So yeah, I know this was probably a very, very long video, but I had a lot to say to myself, so it's okay. I'm looking forward to listening to this in the future. But here is my week. So yeah, 2 trades, and I still rock quite a deep DD, minus 30. I talk about this many times. I got myself in quite a doo-doo, but ever since I decided to trade perfectly, which is actually at the bottom, I've been very consistent, and it's starting to go up slowly but surely. And I believe it's only going to get better over time as I dial in all of these new rules. And once markets start moving and really trending on the high time frames, whoa, I think I'm going to milk them. I'm looking forward to that. Like still, the opportunity is very, very few and rare these days, at least for my specific rules. But once we get into a market condition where even on the daily it starts trending, or God forbid the weekly, damn, that's going to be insane because I'm going to be coming in day after day and I'm going to have trades, and my edge is really going to start playing out because now my edge is playing out by not trading, right? That's part of my edge, not trading, a huge part of my edge actually, like 90% of it. If you think about it, we probably I trade less than 0.1% of all the price action. So it's super, super, super important to have it defined, have your rules defined in a way that actually keep you out of 99.9% of price action. Because in that 99.9, you do not have that edge that you have in the zero point 0.1. The zero point 0.1 is where profitability is. So, yeah, that's all. Look, as always, if any of this sparks any thoughts in you, and maybe you want to discuss a little bit about trading, shoot me a DM, tag me in Trade Talk. I love to love to talk about trading. So yeah, um, I wish you all the best in the next week, and I will see you guys in the market. Peace.